Hello, welcome to Portal's Portfolio series, where we will have readings and interviews with student writers and published authors from Vancouver Island University and around the country. We'll talk with them about what it takes to be a writer in the ever-changing world of publishing. Portal 2021 is currently being designed by Chantal Calitz, and all 104 gorgeous color pages will be shipped off to the printer on March 24th. It'll be on newsstands in late May. Stay tuned for information about our 30th anniversary virtual launch to be live streamed on Facebook in mid-April. It'll feature contributor readings and merch such as new t-shirts, mugs, and book bags to mark 3 decades of publishing in the heart of Vancouver Island. Hello, everybody. I'm super thrilled to have Nic Ismirnioglou with me today on the Portfolio series. Nic is just graduating from the creative writing bachelor degree program at Vancouver Island University, where he has received numerous awards and scholarships, including the Meadowlarks Award for Fiction, the Bill Juby Award for Mature Students, the Annalise Skoropad Award from CUPE Local 1858, and the BC Arts Council Scholarship Award for Literary Arts. Nic has had experience with Portal magazine in the past. His poem Party at the Plaza was published in Portal 2018, and he was a poetry editor for Portal 2019. On top of that, his work has been featured in The Navigator at VIU. If that isn't enough, Nic also works as an experienced set decorating coordinator in film and television. Nic is currently looking for a publisher for the manuscript of his first novel, a coming-of-age story titled Skinny Mike. This year, Nic's short fictional story titled Undercurrents will be published in Portal 2021. And today, Nic joins me from his home in Nanaimo. Nic, thank you so much for being on the Portfolio series.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
From the intro, it sounds like you've had quite an interesting career with film and television and stuff leading up to now. Have you been writing the entire time through your career?
Yeah, I have. I always wanted to be a writer, always envisioned myself writing novels from a young age, but I had a very demanding job and still do. And never found myself in the space where I was productively and consistently writing. So about, I guess, 4 years ago now, I enrolled in the crew program because I had some credits from another undergrad from years ago. And I really wanted to write and to set aside the dedicated time to write and really to try to make it happen and, really take it seriously. I'd always been writing poems and vignettes and short stories or segments of short stories or start novels and not finish them or start them and finish them too short or not, structured well enough or not finished enough. So the program really helped me, refine those skills.
Did it really kind of force you to sit down and with all the deadlines and assignments?
Yeah, there's some literature on habit versus discipline and how it's stronger to form habits than to discipline yourself to do something. And what the program did is it got me in the habit of writing every day or writing almost every day. So once you're in that habit, you have not only deadlines, but you're writing things that you wouldn't necessarily write because you'll have multiple classes. And you might say like for the last 2 years of the program, I was working on a novel, right? But I had to write a lot of other stories and you have to come up with other material. But what that does is it constantly keeps you in the creative process and constantly keeps you writing and refining your skills and getting close to your million words or whatever your concept of mastery is. So it really helped me not only get discipline myself, but form the habit of writing every day and really refine my work to a professional level.
Nice. So were you writing as a kid? And if so, like, were there an author or a book that really inspired you?
I don't know. I mean, like, I started writing more obsessively when I was like my late teens, probably 17, 18, with poetry. I did write some shorter stuff and some poems. As early on as probably 8 or 9. My favorite short story, which was adapted into a children's book and film, was Rikki Tikki Tavi, which is from the Jungle Book by Kipling. That was when I was like 4. and that really resonated with me. Brian Jacques' Redwall series resonated with me when I was 11. When I was 13, I was really into the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. As I hit about 17, 18, I started getting more into literary fiction, got, really fell in love with The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by Joyce, and This There I Had a Paradise by Fitzgerald, and poetry like the collected works of Billy the Kid by Ondaatje. And those were the works that were really resonating with me in my coming of age.
What attracted you to the program at VIU? How did you find the program?
Well, mainly because I wanted to write full time, and I moved to Nanaimo, I would say maybe 2 years prior to my enrollment in the program at VIU. So it was just, a perfect mix of interest and proximity. Like, it's a great program. I, had the marks to transfer after 2 years, but the professors at VIU give you so much attention and so much interest, and the class sizes are so small, and there's so much development that goes on for the students, that I really felt it was such a strong program after having been in it for a while. Because you don't start out as a first year in a class with 200 students and a TA marking your work. You're already forming those relationships with your professors, and you're already in a workshop program in first year, whereas in a program like UBC's, you're not doing workshops, as far as I know, until third year. So it really helped me to not only cultivate my writing, but as I said, I was working on the novel for the last 2 years of the program. I don't think I would have been ready to start my first novel 2 years ago if I hadn't already been workshopping for 2 years. So I may not have started it until after my fourth year, and then I might not have had the time to write full time and complete it within 2 years. It might have taken me 5 or 6 if I was just working and writing. So it really, I think the style of program that we have at VIU, where the workshopping starts early and the class sizes are very small, I think really accelerates the process of writing and being organized for being a productive writer for the students who really dedicate their time and focus and enthusiasm into it.
Now, your short story Undercurrent is going to be published very soon in the upcoming issue of Portal Magazine. Would you be able to read a passage from Undercurrents?
I'd be happy to, thank you. It's cold in the shade, I said, hoping to sound nonchalant. Don't be a wimp. You'll warm up once you're in the water, Blake said. The sun was warm on my skin as Blake and I had walked down the concrete stairs at the end of my street to the beach. Beneath the late September sky, 2 massive waterfront homes cast shadows on the sand. We stripped down to our shorts. I looked at Blake's fleshy stomach. He wasn't fat, but he had more meat on his bones than I did. We sprinted into the ocean. The seaweed slid along my calves and foam hit my back as I submerged in the surf. He ran after me and dunked my head with his hand on my Kurt Cobain undercut. I gasped, coming up for air. Bet you're cold now, Blake said. He dunked me again, so I slammed my shoulder into his waist and tackled him. He grabbed a length of bull kelp and swung it like a whip. I floated there for a while, feeling almost nothing. The sea lapped against my neck as I swam farther out. The water was a vague presence, then absence against my skin. The undercurrent tugged me. Seagulls glided on the breeze, and the salty ocean spray lashed at my lips. I gave myself over to it. Detritus bobbed in the waves. That morning, Blake had skidded his chrome BMX into my gravel driveway. The sun cast a fuzzy halo above his shaved dome. How'd you get that scar on your eyebrow? I asked as he came in and flopped onto the love seat. My brother whacked me on the head on the kitchen countertop. Why don't you shave your head? My mom wouldn't let me. Blake scoffed. Why do you have to be such a mama's boy? I'll shave your head with my dad's electric razor. Not today. I've been rocking the Kurt Cobain bowl undercut since grade 6 and wasn't ready to let it go. Tomorrow then? He looked at me with a raised eyebrow. I'm just kidding. You can do whatever you want, but shaved heads look badass. We played Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage for a while, but Blake got frustrated and threw his controller on the carpet. It bounced and clunked against the entertainment center. "What the hell, man?" I shouted. "What the hell, man?" He mocked and punched me in the arm. I didn't want him to get bored and want to go to his house where his brother would beat on us. Sometimes he'd even turn Blake on me. "Want to go swimming?" "It's almost October," I said. "So what? It's a sunny day. Besides, haven't you heard of the polar bear swim? It's New Year's Day. My grandpa did it, so I'm sure you'll survive." I looked outside. Not really t-shirt weather, let alone bathing suit. "All right," I said. I went into my room and grabbed 2 pairs of swim trunks from my drawer, one orange, one blue. "Which ones do you want to wear?" I asked when I brought them to Blake in the living room. "The blue ones, you weirdo," he said as he grabbed them. "I can barely get into these," Blake said. He left the drawstring untied and the elastic hugged his waist. "You should get some board shorts." Muffles.
Thank you. You almost kept going. Read the whole story. That first sentence, "It's cold in the shade." I know, like, you and I have been in a few workshop classes before, and I always notice your attention to sensory. You always try to use the 5 senses in your descriptions. Is there kind of a trick that you use or a mode that you use to try and get into that feeling all those senses?
Yeah, I sit there and I imagine what it would feel like. So I might start writing a scene and might have a person, sitting in the shade, and I'm aware that there's a tree there, and I might describe that there's a tree and there's shade. But I'm also thinking, if I'm sitting there, what am I wearing? Okay, am I short sleeved? If I'm short sleeved, is there breeze? Is there no breeze? Is there sun? Is there, and then it's kind of warm, or is there an absence of sun and it's kind of cool, or is there breeze and it's really cool? And if there's breeze and it's really cool, how is that affecting the way the scents of the trees are and the grass and the leaves? Like, I'm trying to imagine all these things and what it would really be like, and reflecting on just experience with sensory information that I've processed in my day to day.
I heard a good tip once about like picture yourself in the situation, but with your eyes closed, and describe everything with your eyes closed. And then, because we're in writing, often we just are writing what we see or what we think we see, but we're missing all those other things.
Yeah, I think that's a far more succinct way of saying what I was trying to say.
I love the reference to Spider-Man and Venom, Maximum Carnage, and it seems a lot of this stuff could be autobiographical. Is a lot of your work autobiographical? And if so, how do you gauge between what you make up and what you take from real life?
Yeah, it just depends on like the comfort zone, what I want to share, what I don't want to share, and like for this story, for example, the swimming part is true. I don't know whether the time of year was like early spring or late fall. I'm not sure which part of that was true, but the swimming itself, the getting cold, the being much skinnier than my friend, and then around that, very much the sensory experience of it, I crafted the fiction.
Um, you've written a lot of poetry. How does your process of writing poetry differ from prose? Do you just start writing something and then decide later if it's going towards poetry or prose, or do you have something set out in mind before you even start?
Yeah, a lot of my poetry's kind of moved into prose poetry now, and that's kind of what's happened over the years. However, I'm usually pretty aware that it's going to be a prose poem or a poem versus a short story, in that I'm a lot more focused on the musicality of the language in a prose poem. And although I incorporate some of that in short fiction, I am not so painstakingly attentive to it. But yeah, no, I generally know I'm writing a short story or writing a poem. And for something longer, I'm one of those architectural outliners. I outline like every chapter.
Did you do that for Skinny Mike?
Yeah, I outlined every single chapter of 41. Yeah,
That,
apparently 3 types of art outliners, and one's called the architectural or the architect, and I'm that one.
I'm a pantser. I
Oh, are
just
you?
write random things and try to fit them together.
Yeah, the one I heard that described that was called the crocodile hunter. I was told that there was the architect, the gardener, and the crocodile hunter, and you're that's I guess. I like them both, so that's a good. Panther's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering about that too. For I'm in some novel and novella classes right now, and almost everyone in my class, including me, we've had a hard time shifting from the short story to novel, where kind of the broader scope. Did you find that when you were shifting, say, from short stories and then started writing your novel, that it was a switch to try to bring in a longer scope into your work?
It was almost the other way around. What I found difficult this story was the last story of my last fiction class, my last short fiction class, and prior to that, I had structured the preceding 3 semesters or maybe 4 of fiction classes, all to write and complete my novel. So I hadn't written a short story in like 2 years, and it was very difficult because I had to finish a story in like, I mean, the final draft of this is 1,100 words. The copy I think I submitted was about 1,700, 1,600, and to finish a story in that few words was very, very difficult. You have to be so much more precise. And on the other hand, and in saying that, my earlier short fiction classes, I was trying to do linked short fiction, so it still had the overarching narrative. So I find writing shorter fiction harder because I can't just blither on for thousands of words.
It's a smaller frame.
Yeah, you have to be precise. You have to be economical. Like yeah, it's just, yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you got into the habit of writing every day. What does a typical writing day look like for you? Do you write in the morning and then revise later, or?
Usually in the morning. Yeah. And revision, it's not like I know some people write in the morning, revise later. I kind of like, it just depends what I'm working on. Like the last thing I worked on was a second draft of a screenplay that I just finished writing. And that's all I worked on for probably, I think I started sending out the novel at the end of January. So I think all of February and March for this rewrite of the screenplay. And, say 6 mornings a week, probably I worked on editing and rewriting that. And that's it. And when I was doing the book, aside from class stuff, that was it. I kind of really, really hyper focused or tunnel vision on one project. And I think it's that kind of process is informed by the job I have and have had over the years and the kind of focus it takes.
You kind of want to complete something before you move on to the next thing?
Yeah, partially because I was such a dilettante when I was younger. And I started so many creative works and I didn't make anything of them or complete them. Or so at this stage, if I do something, I want to do it.
Complete it.
Yeah.
I find when I'm writing nonfiction, I'll just type straight into the computer, but when I'm doing poetry and fiction, I'll do more longhand in a notebook. Are you a computer or notebook?
It's all about ease of process or whatever I have close to my hands at the moment. If I'm out somewhere, walking around, driving, got a bag with me, I'll have a notebook in it. A lot of times I would commute back and forth on the ferry, like prior to COVID and the shutdown. I'd commute back and forth on the ferry to Vancouver to film and then come back to the island on the weekends. And I would do a lot of writing on the ferry. So in that case, it might be on a notebook, or if I was bringing my laptop for the office job, then it'd be on the laptop. But if I don't have my computer with me, I usually have something to write on. And usually it's like a little, moleskin style notebook. And most times since I've been at home for since last March, and I've been doing all my work at home, since last August. It's now all computer because there's really not any time where I'm not here other than going to the grocery store. But yeah, I think it's just always good to have something on hand that you can jot down a sketch or an idea for a character or something.
What do you do to gather inspiration? Like I often try to go for a daily walk, and I find by the time I get back from the walk, I'm scribbling down a bunch of notes.
Yeah, as far as inspiration, I feel like, walking is one of those things because I do walk, and I also cycle about 5 days a week. I feel like when you're in those, modes of physical exercise, you enter kind of almost like a meditative state, not a meditative state of emptiness, but of reflection and contemplation. And I find when I'm going through that thought process that I come up with ideas for writing, and I process things that are going on in my story and things that are going on with characters and their backstory and what, their childhood was like or whatever, right? So yeah, definitely physical movement helps me process story. And even just when I'm like puttering around doing things, I'm always reflecting on my story, contemplating about it, thinking about, the hardest part is when I've completed one thing to start something new. And I think that might be why I like the idea of longer works right now. Because if like the screenplay is 80 pages, it's too short, but still like 80 pages can keep you busy for a long time. Once you're done that, it's like, I got to think up an original idea, and we're always in the process of original ideas. And I guess that may be the greatest difficulty with writing short fiction all the time, is always having something new and something fresh and something that looks at things or presents things from a different angle.
Do you find writing poetry helps you come up with new original ideas for fiction?
No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. The Skinny Mike and a lot of the kind of short fiction I'm writing now morphed out of some of the narrative or some of the plots or plot lines of the prose poetry I had been writing before that. However, I haven't probably written a poem in a year or a year and a half. I just don't seem to have the impetus for it right now. I don't know if that'll change, but like I said, I went from a book to a screenplay, and the screenplay was long. So now I'm just trying to think of what the next thing to write is. I'm thinking about maybe writing some more like early teen stuff, like grade 8, grade 9, kind of like, what it's like to be a very young person, probably again in the 90s, since then I don't have to do any period research for accuracy.
Nice. How much do you submit your work?
I've submitted, well, I don't know, I probably should submit short fiction 10 times a year. I know it should be like 100, and that's kind of like the goal that I think we should all aspire to, is to submit 100 times a year, but I don't find myself doing that much. When I first finished the novel, I submit that to like 7 publishers and 1 agent. Although it was disheartening because I had the writer's market, and I know Penguin is notorious for not accepting unsolicited submissions, but in the writer's market, it said that their YA people were accepting that, but they sent all my manuscripts back to from the different imprints, so that was annoying. But yeah, I think the main thing is just to dust yourself off and roll with the punches.
Well, that was my next question, was how do you handle rejection when you get those rejections?
You just, like I said, roll with the punches. It's kind of like being an actor. They have to do so many auditions, and at least with our rejection, we can send it in an envelope and be introverts about it. Mm-hmm. We don't have to face like the physical presence of like, oh, we didn't like you. Yeah. So not that it's ever that. It's about whether it suits the theme of the magazine, or the type of authors the agent wants to pick up.
I heard an analogy once to like buying clothes at the store. If you go up to a clothing rack and you look for the the shirt that suits you best, but the other people who made the other shirts aren't going to be like, oh man, my shirt wasn't good enough. It's just that that shirt, and it's kind of like the publishers are like that. They're looking for a certain piece of clothing that suits them, and it doesn't mean that all the other writers out there are terrible. It's just that that didn't suit them for that moment.
Yeah, exactly. And then you could even go further with that illustration and say, even when you buy those clothes, you might buy 10 of those things, but there's probably one thing you wear all the time. And that's kind of like a really beloved book, or a story that you really love, or a book that sells really well, just because the publisher picked it up because their marketing says that they need a certain thing. It doesn't distinguish which is going to be the one that really thrives and helps their bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nick, this has been really good. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really was really happy to be interviewed today, and thrilled to be in the 30th anniversary issue of Portal, and really enjoyed giving a little reading on your podcast.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Portal Portfolio Series. Portal is a literary magazine published by students at Vancouver Island University's Creative Writing and Journalism Department on the territories of the Snuneymuxw, Quw'utsun, and Tla'amin First Nations. For more information about Portal's portfolio series, please visit portalmagazine.ca.